Hello and welcome to another episode of Café 21. I'm your host, Ross Crawford, and in the hot seat today, we have another very special guest. Our guest today, we are very excited to have as a keynote speaker at the first STGC event in November. She's a multi-award winning doctor and surgeon, owner of One Aesthetic Studio, based in Cheshire and London. She is a globally renowned keynote speaker, and we're so excited to have her in the hot seat today. Welcome to the hot seat, Dr. Chantrey. How are you, Dr. Chantrey?
I am great, thank you, Ross. Thanks so much for the invitation to speak today.
Of course, no problem. So you've been briefed, you know the drill. It's 3 questions and 3 answers. Are you ready?
Yeah, I think so.
Good stuff. So you clearly have a very impressive background, and we're all so very excited to have you speak at the conference. Your wisdom, I'm sure, will be imparted on all of us in attendance that day. But as an introduction to STGC and our audience, don't explain to the viewers what your goals are within the industry, and specifically as well with One Aesthetic Studio.
You know, this is a very big question, Ross. So I'm going to try and drill this down for you. For me, education is a huge, huge thing. And I always lead with education. It meant a lot to me in my own life. I attribute really most of my success to me taking the bull by the horns when it came to my own education. So I always want to kind of pass that forward and pay it forward. So for me, education is key, both to my patients and to the public and to my peer group. So that's been a huge part of my career. And I feel incredibly privileged because I've actually traveled over 6 continents for the last 12 years and been invited to speak throughout those 6 continents on a number of different subjects around plastic surgery, aesthetics, anti-aging, positive aging, all the kind of, the nuts and bolts of the medical aspects behind that. And it is a real privilege to be invited into these countries to teach those doctors, those professors about their own people, about their own ethnicities, their own cultural diversity. So that's been a huge privilege for me, being able to learn at the same time as giving back and sharing knowledge. And when it comes to public education, I love that. I've worked with the media a lot. Again, I feel a very privileged position with that. Both worked with 5 major TV channels and extensively do a lot of media advice and writing. So I think there's still a lot to be done, because ultimately, if the public and patients can make better choices, more informed choices, then they're more likely to make safer choices. They're more likely to go to the right types of doctors, the right types of providers, because in the United Kingdom, we have a real problem in the UK, because when it comes to aesthetics, it's getting worse. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to have a huge amount of training. You can open up anything above a shop or at the back of a hairdresser's. So it's putting a lot of patients at risk in terms of outcomes and medical risks. So for me, it starts with a patient. If they're making better choices, then I always hope that will propagate forward. And innovation, to me, is very important. I know we'll get onto that, but making impact with innovation for me has been crucial to my career, making change. And ethics. So for me, everything starts with ethics. My core values, my core beliefs, I won't compromise those commercially or in any other form medically when it comes to me and my patients. And when it comes to One Aesthetic Studio in Cheshire and my practice in London, first and foremost, my patient safety always is the priority. I choose the best products, the most scientifically based, evidence-based products. I'm often involved in innovation, bringing new things to market, but anything that I do bring into my practice, I have considered the research behind it extensively. So there's so many different facets to that, but those are my main things: paying it forward with education, innovating, and always being true to my core values and my core beliefs.
No, it's a fantastic set of principles, I think, to bring into the industry for sure. And can only commend you for that, and sticking true to those values, I think, is very important. You mentioned innovation there, and that is the next question. Being a technology company, we're always looking for advancements in technology and in innovating industries. What kind of trends in terms of what's available to a patient now in terms of innovation have you seen in the industry, and how is that going to be able to help patients for years to come, do you think?
Yeah, so I do a lot of work in terms of trend forecasting globally, but also one of my biggest passions is lab to launch when it comes to new product development. So in my background, I was a research plastic surgeon in biotech. So I've worked a lot with wound healing, with scarring, with anti-scarring therapies, but also translating that into the aesthetics market. I've brought a lot of products to market in terms of skincare, some of the top skincare products on the market, and in terms of injectables, right from concept, from a conversation in a room about concept to the lab, to clinical trial, to, really looking at that evidence and analyzing that, and then bringing it to the international market. So I think that I do have a diverse set of skills within that, but those opportunities have helped me to really develop those. It's been fascinating. So I feel like within aesthetics and plastic surgery, it's a very fast-moving industry. There's a big spotlight on it. At times, it's often thought that it's quite a superficial and vain industry, and I can agree. But, underlying all of that, there's always a reason for patient motivations. And something that I really want to shine more of a light on, that I do with my own education and within my clinics, is those motivations. What's the why, etc. So in terms of innovation, it's going back to those reasons. What is driving patients? What are their motivations? How do we meet those needs, both from a medical perspective, developing new products, pushing those forward, making sure they're safe and that they're efficacious, that they work. And then, there's always the big push for what's new, what's next. Patients really push for that. The public, they kind of take a bit of an ownership when it comes to beauty, aesthetics, anti-aging. It's a rapidly moving market, but I always try to give a voice of reason that innovation is amazing, but we need to always stay safe and think things have to work. Don't just jump on the bed, of the next thing, because, you might not always be putting yourself in the right hands.
No, it's definitely fascinating stuff. I think it's very much a fast-paced environment in the industry, so it must be a fascinating one to work in and something we're very excited to learn more about. You actually mentioned skincare and skincare products in your answer there, and always looking for innovation in skincare products. I imagine developing your own skin routine is something you've taken very seriously yourself, and something you like to pass on to your patients, I imagine. Do you have any general advice on how to improve skin health and skin condition? Because it's something that's kind of crucial, I think, and definitely something a lot of people are talking about in your industry at the moment.
Yeah, again, it's a huge question. Again, how I'd like to actually answer that is, for me, when I'm working with my patients, it really can't just be about the outside. And I really mean that, not just as a cliche, because it's always a working balance between someone's level of self-acceptance and self-improvement. And what I'm excited about to be talking in your conference is from a very positive perspective. I'm going to be talking about performance. I'm going to be talking about quality of life, of confidence. And there is a self-image spectrum, and we're all on that. But so there is a fine balance, actually. I'm not all about the outside. So for me, it starts with mindset. It starts with the psychology of the patient and me supporting them with that. What's the reason? Again, what's their why? What's their socioeconomic factors? What are their cultural influences that are driving them to want treatments? And maybe they've got a very high level of self-esteem and self-worth, and maybe they just want to kind of preserve themselves or just feel, just a little bit sharper in the game or whatever. But I also see a very different end of the spectrum. A lot of my work, a very significant part of my work, is working with facial deformity, scarring, patients who have been in burns, huge trauma. And that's very, very different. That they can be a very vulnerable group of patients, as are other demographics of society, particularly those that are wanting to transform in terms of being more true to their gender identification. There's so many other elements. So starts with that. It then also, I look at diet, I look at stress. All of those things in terms of lifestyle are critical, where the patient lives. So I have a lot of patients that are global. They fly into the UK, usually to have treatments. But those are important factors. And then when it comes to actual skin health, I like the way you frame that question, Ross, because again, it's not a superficial thing. Skin's our largest organ. It displays in many ways aspects of our internal health, but we also absorb a lot of different things from our skin as well, and it acts as a barrier. So it's really important that that barrier function is optimum. And of course, as I said, to the self-confidence piece as well, when somebody's got better skin, maybe they can improve their scarring, or maybe they've suffered with acne their whole lives. These things can have a huge impact on the quality of life. So it's all about the bespoke approach to it. I always advise people to go into a good clinical practice, someone that's leading that as an expert who is peer reviewed and has extensive experience. There's aesthetic clinics popping up all over the place, but it doesn't necessarily mean you'll always get the best advice for you. So do seek out, research your practitioners, and then have a thorough skin diagnosis. So it might not be that you actually have a skin problem as such, you're just possibly wanting to improve it. And then it's about that bespoke nature. So everything from the right cleanser to a toner, I'm afraid it is true. All of these different steps, they make an impact. Antioxidants, for instance, we know that we should be taking them internally, but it's super important to have them superficially on the skin as well. And not all skin products are the same. They're not all created equal. You want active ingredients that are specifically formulated to have a high performance in the skin. So yeah, it can be improved. You're never too old. I have patients who are in their mid-80s and are still working on improving their skin and maintaining their skin. So why not? But like I said, we've all got a lens on us to a certain extent, and I think that having a healthy approach to it and cultivating a healthier self-image is always at the heart of what I do. And certainly I'll probably mention the charitable work that I am also involved in. At my studio in Cheshire, we have a development studio, which was really important to me from an educational perspective. I also trained as a yoga teacher, but I don't kind of teach downward dog or any of that. It's an opportunity, different mental health forums, different groups with different meditation workshops. I have other speakers that come in just to start thinking about things differently, hormones, meditation, hair loss, stress, all of these sorts of things. And something that's very close to my heart is my project called One Beauty Project, where I support those who do have more challenges with their self-image, with body dysmorphia. Many of them have had facial deformity and have had a lot of physical and emotional trauma in their lives. So I'll probably be sharing some of their stories at the conference to bring it to life as well.
Oh, brilliant. And we're looking forward to it. Honestly, Dr. Chantrey, I could hear you talk all day about these kind of subjects. You're obviously very passionate about the work you do. And we look forward to hearing more about it at the conference. So thank you very much, Dr. Chantrey, for sitting in the hot seat today at Café 21. We wish you well for the future here at STGC, and we'll be seeing you very, very, very soon.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation.